Hi everyone, I'm Mindy Eggen. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a really fun embossing technique, and that is double heat embossing. It is a really great way to step up your images and your heat embossing. You can apply this technique to any image, any sentiment, but the stamp set I'm going to be using today is this special limited edition Nordic Christmas. This is a collaboration set with Simon Says Stamp and Gina K Designs, so it's only available over at Simon Says Stamp. It is a free gift with any purchase of $50 or more of Gina K Designs products. Some of the supplies I'll be using today is a craft tacky mat. I have the masking rectangles. For inks, I have Embossing Ink, Intense Black from Simon Says Stamp, and Peach Bellini from Gina K Designs. And I also have a blending brush. I'm going to be using some Gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, an anti-static powder tool, and some Nouveau drops. For cardstock, I have Hammermill White and Red Velvet from Gina K Designs. I'm going to start right into doing my double heat embossing technique. So I have my cardstock in here. This is 4¼ by 5½. It is the Red Velvet Cardstock from Gina K Designs. The most important thing you want to do is prep your cardstock. I am using an anti-static powder tool from Simon Says Stamp, and then I'm going to ink up my image using my embossing ink. When I stamp this down, I am not pushing super hard because this tree does have some delicate areas to it, but I am going to stamp it multiple times. I think I do 3 times here. Not sure if that also is kind of a key point, but I feel like it does help me to make sure I'm getting complete coverage. Then I'm going to sprinkle on the Gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. This is a really pretty gold embossing powder, but you can do this technique with any color of embossing powder. Now make sure that your heat tool is really nice and hot before coming to the cardstock. That is going to help minimize the warping of that paper. Give that cardstock and that embossing powder a few seconds to cool off, and then plop it back into your Misti stamping tool. Again, prep that with the anti-static powder tool. Those are very key things you want to make sure you do. Then I'm going to ink it up again and stamp it down. Now, if I am off, I'm going to notice because there's going to be a dark line of ink on the cardstock if I happen to miss the heat embossed area. So you'll know right away if it did not line up. I did stamp it twice. I'm going to sprinkle on that embossing powder again, tap off any excess. And again, make sure your heat tool is really nice and hot when you come to melt that embossing powder. I really wanted to do this one more time, but with the fine details and some of the area of the tree, I was worried it was going to start distorting that. So I'm going to stop at 2, but it just gives it a little bit more dimension to that heat embossing. It fills it in a lot better, and it kind of gives this faux metal look. It is a really fun technique, and it gives just gorgeous results. Now, while I have my stamping positioner out, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. This says Merry Bright in this beautiful scripty font. I'm going to use that white cardstock to do my stamping, and I'm going to use the Intense Black ink to do this. So I'm going to just ink up my sentiment. Mine is already conditioned, so if yours is brand new, I highly recommend kind of rubbing your finger over your stamp or even starting out with embossing ink and then wipe it with a tidy towel to get it cleaned off. Now I'm going to take a Swiffer cloth and just buff over my embossed area so that I can remove any of that excess powder. And when I started lining up the coordinating dies for this, I struggled. It was really tight to the image. I was nervous I wasn't going to line it up very good. So I am using a Gina K Designs trick. I die cut just using the die. I die cut those shapes out of just a different color of cardstock. And I trimmed those out to separate them. I'm going to take that negative piece and I'm going to line it up over my stamped image. I'm going to try and get a nice even border all the way around and then hold that down with a low tack tape. Then I'm able to just take that die and pop it right in there. It fits in just like a puzzle. And I'm also going to hold that down as well. This is a great trick if you struggle lining up your coordinating dies with your images or sentiments. So I do have my sentiment one there that I did off screen, and now I'm going to die cut these. So I'm bringing in my Intri-Cut Die Cut Machine from Gina K Designs, opening that up and just kind of pushing those two ends together so that my platform is secure. I am using the magnetic mat and then my glass, not glass, my top plate to run through. I have it set at just die cut and 0 if you're familiar with the dials on the side. Now you can see that everything is die cutting out absolutely perfect. I don't have to redo any of my stamping. While I had my die cut machine out, I also went ahead and die cut out the tree and the sentiment multiple times to layer it up and give it dimension. Now, the tree, you could just use some foam tape if you wanted to add foam tape. The sentiment, though, I like stacking up my die cuts because that can be a little hard to add foam behind because there are some smaller areas to it. I'm going to create a simple background for this image. So I brought in my craft tacky mat from Simon Says Stamp. I have my A2 masking rectangles. Now that etched line I was just showing you is going to line up with my card panel, which is the Hammermill cardstock cut to 4¼ by 5½. And then once I line that up, I can push down. The tacky mat is gripping the stencil, so it's not going to move. Then I'm going to ink blend with Peach Bellini. I really love the Peach Bellini color with kind of that red velvet or any type of Christmas red. I think it's a beautiful color combination. So I'm just going to fill that in completely. And once I remove it, it's going to give me just a really nice white border. It's that flat surface, so I'm not adding too much dimension to the front of my card. And if you're using the Gina K Designs inks and your ink blending looks a little blotchy at first, just give it a few minutes to dry because everything is going to smooth out evenly. I have a heavy piece of cardstock that going to score at 4¼ so I'm creating a side folding card base. This is an A2 size card front. And then I'm going to just reinforce that fold with my bone folder. I'm going to add some adhesive to this and get my rectangle panel or my ink blended panel attached right away. There are some finishing touches that I want to add, but I really want to have my card mainly put together before I do those. I'm going to add some of the liquid glue behind my tree. This is Connect glue that I have in a fine tip bottle. Then I'm going to place my tree over that ink blended rectangle. And I really like how the tree just slightly overhangs that a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and add the sentiment as well. And a lot of times I will take something heavy like an acrylic block and just set it on top to let that really adhere together. Typically, when I'm waiting for something to dry, I'll just go through and start cleaning up my workspace, putting my tools away that I know I'm done with. So I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. Now, once that is done, I am bringing in the Chalk Stick Nouveau drops. This is from Tonic, and I'm going to add these white dots all around my ink blended background, wherever the tree is not on top of, obviously. So I'm just adding a few here and there. I do recommend testing on a scratch piece of paper before taking those drops to your cardstocks. Sometimes those drops can come out kind of fast, so you want to experiment with that before you go to your final card project. I hope you enjoyed today's double embossing technique and these heat embossing tips. I hope help you in your heat embossing. I will have more information over on my blog, and that will be linked down in the video description along with the supplies that I used today. Thank you so much for joining.